E102 Gamma is one of the strangest characters in the Sonic series, appearing as a major supporting character in Sonic Adventure, dying in what is apparently a emotional climax to the game, making cameos in 102 spin-offs before disappearing for the next 2 decades after basically being replaced by Omega. Despite this, he's remained surprisingly popular throughout that time, likely due to a unique gameplay style and interesting design, 2 traits which have been carefully reconstructed in TehRealSalt's brand new mod. Let's dive in. People who have played Sonic Adventure at some point will remember that Gamma is a major departure from the speed-based platforming of the main Sonic story, instead focusing much more on destroying enemies as part of long chain attacks using his lock-on laser mechanic. This is what grants you the time needed to complete levels, as Gamma is always pressured by a countdown to his demise that can only be partially reversed by the destruction of his enemies. This gameplay style has been pretty faithfully recreated in SRB2, with your timer constantly ticking down instead of up, with your enemies refilling it when destroyed. The more enemies destroyed in one chain attack, the more extra time is added to the clock. Luckily, as long as you're fairly on the ball about defeating enemies, and assuming you do at least try to attack multiple at once and don't just fire off your lasers as soon as they lock on, the timer is fairly generous, and you don't need to be fanatic about making sure every single enemy is defeated to be able to get to the end. These unique time mechanics even make their way into record attack mode. Instead of having a countdown, with enemies increasing the amount of time you have left, defeating bandits will now subtract seconds from your final time. A little bit of extra polish that I feel is quite clever. The lock-on laser itself is fairly self-explanatory, even if it is unique in the SRB2 space as of the moment. While holding spin, in air or on the ground, Gamma will have a laser firing out of his front. Hovering this over enemies will cause them to be added to its chain attack, meaning that once the spin button is let go of, a projectile will make their way to them and destroy them. This also targets some level props. I specifically noticed it will lock onto the Techno Hill flowers, as well as monitors, although unfortunately neither of these actually multiply your time. For each bandit destroyed in the chain attack, the amount of time added to your countdown increases. 1 enemy destroyed is 1 second added, 2 enemies are equivalent to 3 seconds, so on and so forth. The most I ever remember seeing is 45 seconds added, which I believe was after an 8 or 9 enemy string. Unsurprisingly, for a game with enemies designed to be destroyed one at a time by jumping on them, the lock-on laser is extremely powerful, able to wipe out rooms of lesser bandits in a matter of a second or 2 and defeat bosses without ever leaving yourself in any real danger. Its sole weakness is that the projectiles fired will circle around for a while before hitting their target, so firing a laser right as you're about to hit an enemy means you'll likely still get hit before the projectile destroys them. So, from that explanation, it should be fairly obvious that Gamma is primarily a combat-focused character, but how does he fare when it comes to traversing levels? The answer is... Gamma, befitting of his huge metallic frame, he's apparently more than 2 meters tall, is fairly slow and heavy, with a slower than average movement speed and difficulty with running up steeper slopes. He has a couple of abilities that somewhat alleviate this, but he still doesn't seem like a character that will be taking part in any crazy speedruns. First off is his main traversal tool, without which he'd probably struggle to complete many levels, the Jet Booster. Pressing jump in air will cause Gamma to trigger his rear-mounted boosters, giving him a sizable upwards boost that allow him to overcome most obstacles. Continuing to hold jump will cause him to slowly fall back to the ground, which also helps with jumping large bottomless pits and such. He can even let go and press jump again to trigger the slower fall multiple times in the same jump, for maximum aerial control. In levels with water, this can be comboed with flight mode, which when underwater replaces the slow fall with a constant ascendance to the water surface, at which point Gamma hovers on top of the water and resets his jet booster to escape. You can also jet boost onto the top of the water to achieve the same effect, meaning you can even use this ability on top of lava, making Gamma a great choice in Red Volcano. To speed himself up from his usual slow pace, Gamma has Drive mode, which activates after he travels in a direction for long enough. When travelling in his bipedal form, Gamma struggles with slopes and struggles to gain any momentum, so entering Drive mode somewhat remedies this, although he is still somewhat slow. Also, don't make the mistake of assuming this is Gamma's Dash mode, as it really isn't. You can still slow down and even stop completely while still maintaining it, and you don't continue to constantly accelerate while moving. I'm not entirely sure how you actually revert back to your original form. You don't necessarily want to, as the only time drive mode isn't superior to standard movement is when trying to get through particularly narrow gaps, but I think it's something to do with falling, as jumping sometimes causes you to revert and sometimes it doesn't. Finally, Gamma can destroy breakable floors, so even despite his extra height, he can still generally get through most levels. While it is certainly impressive that TehRealSalt managed to accurately emulate Gamma's Sonic Adventure playstyle while still keeping it fun in SRB2, I'd say the most impressive part of the Gamma package are his sprites. As a quick warning for anyone planning on downloading this guy, make sure you've updated to the newest version of SRB2. I originally attempted to test him while still in 2.2.10, which caused him to lose all of his sprites, flash constantly, and become invisible in the air. Not the best way to experience any character, but especially devastating for one with such gorgeous sprites. While I think most modded sprites are usually impressive when viewed in a vacuum, with good character design, lighting, colour schemes, etc., I think many struggle to impart a sense of three-dimensionality and fluidity with them, as most characters can have stiff animations or be particularly flat. The fact that Gamma doesn't struggle with this in comparison can likely be attributed to how he's been fragmented into many parts. His head, body, arms, jet booster and lower body can all move and transform separately, so turning and transforming look particularly impressive. It's also likely due to how good his particle effects are. The jet booster flare in particular is very impressive when combined with how his jet boosters moves, implying a real sense of power behind it, and effects related to the lock-on lasers look very accurate to their original Sonic Adventure appearances. I also love the sound design. Even more so than most vanilla Sonic games, the constant lock-on noises, laser firings, heavy footsteps and sound bites means there's almost always at least one sound effect firing at any one time, which satisfies me immensely for some unknown reason. It has been a long while since I last actually gave a quantifiable score to, well, anything, so I think now would be a good time to somewhat balance and justify my rankings, as I recognise I fell into the trap of just giving 7s and 8s to practically everything. From now on, here are what my scores correspond to. 0 is an entirely unjustifiable mess that fails in everything to an astounding degree, unparalleled in their field. 1 is something that just makes me miserable the entire time I'm playing it. 2 is aggressively bad. 3 is plain bad. 4 just misses the mark enough times to annoy or frustrate me, yet still has a few good points. 5 is average. 6 is good. 7 is good, but with something special that sets it above the rest. 8 is all around great. 9 is the limit of enjoyment that a general audience can have with something. And 10 is something seemingly custom built to appeal to me in every aspect, essentially perfect in my eyes. With this new ranking system in mind, what should I rank E102 Gamma? Well, between his signature gameplay style and gorgeous sprites, as well as a whole host of cooperative features I don't have the means to trial, Gamma is a truly unique character that is effectively his own niche. He isn't necessarily built for me, which stops him from getting a 10, but I think the sheer amount of polish and work that has gone into this, with any complaints I could give, such as him being quite slow and lacking speedrun potential, being neutered by the fact that the character was never intended to in any way accomplish a world record time, meaning that a 9 is the only score I can necessarily justify. And with that, I hope you enjoyed the video, and ciao.